The Oscars, they have come and gone. How did horror do this year? Well, we'll talk about it here on episode number 114 of the Red River Horror Podcast. This episode features some Oscar talk, and we have a special guest. Staci Layne Wilson joins us. So sit back, relax, and let's go down those channels of fear. And welcome back to the Red River Horror Podcast. This is episode number 114. I am your host, Joe Zakrzewski, joined by RedRiverHorror.com founder, Eddie Caiazzo. Hey, Ed, how are you?
Joe, just living the dream every day. Every day you see me, I'm living the dream, and it's the best day of my life. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. And if you wouldn't mind, be a gentleman and introduce our guest today.
Okay, so we have award-winning film critic, author, filmmaker, and she just happens to write for the best horror website on the web. I mean, when we can, when we have a chance at least. Staci Layne Wilson back with us again. Staci, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, Eddie and Joe. Thanks for having me back. I'm so happy to be here to talk about the Oscars. So that is quite a sore spot with a lot of horror fans, and I think we'll have a lot to say on that.
Agreed, Staci. I agree. But really, before we get into it, two things. One, I went to my first ever Oscars party. I'll get more on that later.
Oh, no.
But as you know, on Red River Horror, we celebrate indie film. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Sean Baker on his 4 wins. The first time that one person has won 4 awards in an Oscar. And that's for his film Honora, which he won for Best Film Editing, which he edited himself, Best Original Screenplay, which he wrote, Best Director, which he directed, and overall won for Best Picture on a budget of $6 million. So remember to support indie film. Shout out to Sean Baker and check out Honora. It is quite the intense film, but I wouldn't really put it in the horror space. I think a lot of us horror fans were rooting for the substance to pull this one out.
What do you think?
Oh, I know. Have you seen all the memes online that are like Demi Moore losing the Oscar to Mikey Madison is basically the plot of The Substance?
It is. So when you think about, and also, well, hold on, I'm always like bad on names, but Margaret Qualley?
I believe
who played the younger version.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I loved her on The Leftovers, and I thought she was just fantastic in The Substance as well. Like her and Demi Moore really gave off different but similar energies. It was something I really liked about the acting in the movie. But no, I mean, I was convinced. I was like, this is the year. We are excited for it. Our last episode, we're like, is this like, I don't know, the first time. So Get Out didn't get Best Picture, right? It just had the nomination.
It didn't get Best Picture, but I wanted to. Joe, I've been wanting to do this kind of episode for a long time. Like every time the Oscars rolls around, I want to do like a show like this because I didn't realize how much horror has been awarded at the Oscars. I know we'll get to that a bit later, but this time around, it didn't win Best Picture, Get Out, back in 2017, but
yeah.
What do you think of both? Staci, I'll start with you. What do you think of The Substance even being nominated for Best Picture? You see a lot of films. Would you agree that it should be in that category?
Good question. I'm not sure. I didn't love it as much as everyone else did, but maybe that's because I am a jaded horror fan. I've already seen that body horror thing for decades, and we've seen, the aging actress or singer or performer kind of used in a horror trope to demonstrate the horror of growing older, and not just for women, for men as well. So to me, I mean, it's not anything I haven't seen before, but I'm glad that it made some waves. I think it's a good thing, and definitely to have a female director get recognized in any capacity, but especially for horror. I think it's a great thing.
Joe, what about you?
Yeah.
Do you think that The Substance was Best Picture material? Because I'm trying to think, Joe, so you went to an Oscars party. I remember the last time I was really into movies, like movies that other than horror, was I'm trying to think. It was The Departed in '06 and No Country for Old Men in '07. And then after that, I don't really remember. You would probably know more of my history in watching like quality film than I do at this point. So thinking of those best pictures from the past and what it was up against this year, do you think that The Substance should have been playing in that pool?
You know, like I think everything that Stacy pointed out is why it didn't win. I really enjoyed it, but there are like a lot of recycled tropes just redone really well. So the whole thing behind The Substance and the way it's done, I thought was really, really fantastic. And it was one of those things where it's like I was more hoping it would win just so it could be like, hey, the first horror movie to win Best Picture since Silence of the Lambs. Then I could go off on like, well, is The Substance really horror? Is the Silence of the Lambs really horror? You know, just my really controversial take, if you want to put it that way, elevated horror.
Yeah.
But no, it had its moments where it shined. But then there's also things where it's like, all right, it's not like blow you away. Whereas like Anora has some special, like again, that $6 million budget, the way it's shot, the way it's edited, the acting all around just like really sells it. Even though, you know, it's almost like a like softcore porno. It's well, maybe more than that.
Really, I haven't seen Anora yet, but kind of along the same lines of The Substance was Smile 2, which of course wouldn't have a chance in you know where to for an Oscar nomination, but I actually enjoyed that more as a film goer and a horror fan.
Oh yeah, I mean my best picture of the year, and I've not been quiet about it's Heretic.
Oh, Heretic! Remind me which one that is.
That
Hugh
is
Grant.
Hugh Grant. Yes, I did see that. I'm sorry. Sometimes these titles are so generic that I can't remember which one is which. Yes, I did see that, and I actually saw it with someone who was a missionary for the Mormon Church, so she had some input for me on how realistic it was, and actually, you know, a lot of the things that the girls did and said and thought were pretty authentic. I thought Hugh Grant was absolutely amazing. He's really putting out some of his best work lately. But the film itself, I don't know. It didn't quite work for me. It kind of fell apart when they got down into the basement, and yeah.
Okay.
It didn't quite work for me. Yeah.
Joe, like it was crazy. I was like in love with Hugh Grant. Like, forget the rom-coms. After that movie, I'm like, holy crap, that guy can act.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I said it on this podcast. I know I've said it to everybody that they, you know, talked to about the movie. Is, you know, my 15-year-old daughter Zoe came with us, and because Zoe's starting to get it, she's got a taste for horror now, and I'm like, all right, well, let's ride the wave. And, you know, starring Hugh Grant, and just on the drive to the theater, I'm like, if you told me when I was your age that I was excited to see a Hugh Grant movie, I'd tell you to go F yourself. Like, get out of here. But yeah, no, he was just fantastic, and I think that's what really sold it. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those ones where I think everyone should rewatch it too.
I definitely want to.
And I leave that on the butterfly at the end. Like, focus on the dialogue in the beginning, the butterfly at the end. It's like where,
right? Yeah, it is a lot.
Where does reality actually stop
to absorb at first? So probably a second viewing would be a good idea. I did see Nosferatu 3 times. Not that I necessarily would have chosen to, but now I'm kind of curious about like the extended cut that's just debuted. I'm like, oh my gosh, what more can they do with that? But I really did enjoy that because I love Gothic horror. And I saw it at a press screening, and then as a voting member of some Film Critics Association, then I got a screener, and friends wanted to watch it. So I was like, okay, I'll watch it with you. But my boyfriend was out of town, and then when he got back, it's like, oh, I want to see it. So I watched it with him. So I've seen it 3 times, and I never really got tired of it. So that was one of my favorites of the year.
If you want to read Staci Layne Wilson's review of Nosferatu, it is at redriverhorror.com. You can check it out there. Do I give away the boat rating, or do we save that and make them go to the website?
It's up to you. It's your site.
All right. Let's make him go to the website. But let's just say
I think.
You definitely enjoyed Nosferatu.
I did. Yes, it's very beautifully shot. The gothic atmosphere is nailed 100%. And it's kind of like The Lighthouse in 2019 was also just such a beautifully shot, eerie horror movie that was nominated for cinematography, but it wasn't nominated for anything else. Like you said, a lot of times the horror films that are a cut above the rest are still relegated to technical awards.
Yeah. And that's another one where I thought it might have had some more nominations just because of the classic link to Nosferatu. And then, Eggers just has the gift for atmosphere.
He really does, man.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It is like it brings you in immediately. And I'll tell you guys, and Joe, I'll let you finish your thought. But like, you would not believe this, but my favorite part in the whole movie, actually nothing really happens, but it's just the entirety of the moment you're put in when the main guy, who's leaving to go make the deal with Nosferatu, he's on his way to the castle and he's in like that forest type thing. And it's just completely barren. Dude, sitting by myself, like, lights out and just watching that, it's nothing even happens except that carriage pulls up with nothing driving it, and the door opens, and I am like, whoa. It gave me goosebumps. I loved it. So Joe, to finish your thought, it's funny, like that's the atmosphere is so good that my favorite part of the movie is nothing really even happens.
and the cast was great too. I mean, Lily Rose Depp is like turning into a star of her own. We'll see where she goes. She's got the clout with the name, but she's doing very, she's not bad.
Yeah, Nicholas Hoult, he's doing a lot of horror films and has done some. So yeah, the cast is excellent. Of course, Willem Dafoe is back with Robert Eggers again, and it's fun to see him kind of chew the scenery, but not to the point where he takes it over the top. It's still like a very misty, foggy, British style gothic horror.
It does, and it's like something where, before I watched it, I was doing a lot of homework on the history behind the original silent film. Really enjoy it. It's just like, well, it's just a ripoff of Dracula. It's because it had to be. It's one of the earliest copyright cases in film, because Bram Stoker's widow was still alive during production and would not release anything. So the only thing they could take from the book was the word Nosferatu, which was interesting. So that's like, it's like, why is it exactly the same? Because there's people complaining about that who probably didn't know any of the history, which I saw in a few subreddits, just being like, it's just Dracula. It's like, well, yeah, with a twist.
Yeah, well, it's a classic story. And there's also the Werner Herzog version, Nosferatu from 1979.
Also featuring Willem Dafoe.
Holy crap.
Yeah, that's right. So he was also in the 2000 Willem Dafoe Shadow of the Vampire, right? That about the making of Nosferatu. So yeah, I mean, it's really fun to see him still playing in that graveyard and killing it.
Now, just to close on my Nosferatu thoughts, is like seeing like a little more activity from the actor. It's Aaron Johnson. He's got something in the middle there. Was it Aaron Tyler Johnson?
Oh yeah, the guy from Godzilla. Yeah.
Yeah.
Taylor.
Aaron Taylor Johnson. That's it.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that he's the next Bond. I think that's going to be a thing, which they kind of I thought they were going to announce the next Bond at the Oscars because they did this big musical performance with Bond music, and that didn't happen.
So my dream of Idris Elba
that's a whole different franchise that I love that I'm not going to get into.
Well, I'm not, Joe, you know that I'm not a huge Bond fan, so you're just killing my dreams here. So Idris Elba is not going to be the next Bond?
Probably not.
I might as well.
He might be aging out now, unfortunately, but he would have been great, I think.
Damn. All right, so I'll probably continue
If you were going to change that, he would be the perfect guy for it.
All right. So, and you like Aaron Taylor Johnson? You like him?
I got no problem with them. I actually watched Kick-Ass on the my flight to Florida. I was like, I just need something easy where I can just kind of chill and not pay attention. It'll make me laugh a little. That one does it.
Okay.
It's a good one. If you haven't seen, you've seen that, right?
Kick-Ass, I have not. I know our friend Xander Berkeley was in it, but I have not seen it.
He's in it, and Nicolas Cage is also in it, which is when talking about another movie that I was behind on that I did not get any nominations. Was surprised that Nicolas Cage was in it. Was Longlegs, and that one got recommended really heavy, and I was like, they're like, oh, it's like Silence of the Lambs. Like, not really, but
Yeah, I didn't love that one either, but I did like The Monkey, which is maybe we'll see something at the Oscars for that next year if horror keeps making strides as it has been.
So yeah, I guess let's get into this year's nominees. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, I was like, if anybody's really going to crack that Best Picture, I think it's going to be Robert Eggers at some point because everything he makes just really high quality, like all around. At some point, the Academy's got to give him some love.
Do you think any of the nominees this year, not to make this an Oscar show specifically about the other films, but do you think any nominees this year were pretentious? Because that's one thing I always have a problem with is, you know, I go in wanting to see the slate of films that are up for Best Picture, ones that are nominated, and I'm like, oh, this is like, it's too much. It's just too much. It's over the top. Any in that?
Well, there's so many now. Were there 10? I mean, I
for Best Picture, yeah, there's like 8 or 10.
Oh, good heavens. I can't even remember all of them, but I didn't see Anora, so I don't know about that one. I try to see all of them, but being mainly a horror journalist, I just watch the darker ones that are being considered. So, but I don't know, is Anora, it's not dark, isn't it kind of a comedy or?
I'd say it's like the real version of how Pretty Woman might go today's world. So a lot of it has to do with like, you know, prostitution and rich Russian billionaires and stuff. So, you know,
well, there you go.
Abuse and sex work and stuff like that. It's very glamorous.
Yeah, well, The Last Showgirl didn't really get it. Kind of in that same vein, that one didn't really get any attention at the Oscars, did it? I think some people were expecting Pamela Anderson to be nominated.
Yeah,
that's true. I forgot about that one.
Actually, I really wanted to see that.
I was just kind of looking at the nominees here. So there were a few I didn't see. I did see A Complete Unknown. And as a big Bob Dylan fan, I actually didn't love that. I felt like it was just a standard biopic. It wasn't anything unusual or special, although I do think the acting was really good, but they didn't have much of a script. I did see Conclave, Dune Part 2. I didn't see I'm Still Here or Nickel Boys, though.
Yeah, no, Nickel Boys caught my attention. That and Sing Sing. Sorry, with Pullman Domingo. It's like those are two that I wrote down. We're like, we're going to check those out at some point.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then A Complete Unknown, the cool thing about that was like a lot of it was shot in Cape May, New Jersey. So,
right.
You know, going down to Cape May and like, you know, knowing some of Cape May and seeing it there, trying to be disguised as Newport, Rhode Island was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been to Cape May. I have been to New Jersey once, but not Cape May, but yeah.
Hey, The Prowler was filmed in Cape May, Joe. Stacy, how about that? The Prowler.
Was it?
Wow, really? I did not know that.
So, there you go.
Very charming film.
Yeah.
A charming place to film.
All right, so we'll go through this year's horror performance really quickly, and then I want to move to some historical Academy Award-winning horror. So we had The Substance, and that had 5 nominations: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actress, and it won. It actually won for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. So it took 2 of those. I guess are they named Oscar? Stacy, the guy.
Yeah, that's why it's called the Oscars.
All right, cool. I didn't know if that was
the guy.
Yeah,
properly it's the Academy Awards, but apparently Betty Davis named the statue Oscar because it looked like her husband at the time, and that name kind of stuck. So that's a little trivia for you. Speaking of horror, Betty Davis and Her
Wow.
exploitation movies in the 60s and 70s were pretty scary. I think, yeah, in fact, she was nominated for Best Actress for Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Wow. Okay.
See, I
Awesome.
made it all come together.
That's right.
Look at that. We've gone full circle.
I just always thought of Betty Davis as the song, the 80s song.
There you go. Yeah, Betty Davis eyes, Kim Carnes.
So best makeup and hairstyling. All right, I'm going to guess that's one. All right. So it took home something. All right, just like last year, Godzilla -1 took home best visual effects. Pretty cool. So this time, Nosferatu, 4 nods: best cinematography, best costume design. But I don't know if it won. How could it have not have won? And then Alien Romulus. So from this year, we had Nosferatu, The Substance, and Alien Romulus all in the mix. What's pretty cool, though, Mikey Madison was. Do we spoil her role? I guess we've already come this far. So spoiler alert: if you haven't seen the 5th Scream movie, the I don't know what you call these, requels or whatever the hell, Mikey Madison, along with Dennis Quaid's son, they're the killers in the new Scream movie. Oh, just dropped a bomb. So hope you saw that up to this point.
It's been a few years, so
Well,
I think you're okay.
all right.
I think
good.
it's safe
So
if you haven't seen it at this point.
with that, though, Mikey Madison pulls Best Actress, Joe. Now, I will be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I love the Scream films. When I saw that movie, when you see a Scream film, it's just like, okay, you don't think anybody's going to be coming for an Oscar eventually. And, she did. She won Best Actress. Pretty damn cool.
Yeah, over some very big names too. So,
Yeah.
Honora
Yeah,
was
and when you
the
think
gem
about
of the
it,
night.
yeah, a lot of actresses who have won the Oscars got their starts in horror, so I guess she's no exception.
Crazy. Just pretty cool.
Hey, gotta start somewhere.
I was thinking of Maxine, just like what I can't remember the line and I'm gonna botch it. So moving on. So let's move backwards just a little bit. I want to have respect for both of your guys' time. Back in 2017, I would say was the last time that horror at least was big among the Academy Awards. And it's funny, Staci, I just go back to it was kind of the genesis of RedRiverHorror.com. It was definitely our first year of the website. And you had sent me a press release about the Los Angeles Film Critics, like that association out there. And you had presented an award to Jordan Peele. And I'm like, huh. Now, I had no idea. I will be perfectly honest. Jordan Peele, that was his first horror movie, Get Out, and I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. Clearly, that's why I'm not a quote-unquote movie critic, because I missed something, but you guys didn't at all. So let's move back to Get Out. How did you know that was just going to be a killer film back then?
For me, well, I didn't, like everyone else probably, I really only knew Jordan Peele from Key and Peele, the comedy skit team. So it was really unexpected. But yeah, it did. It earned 4 major nominations at the Academy Awards. It was up for Best Picture, Director, Actor, and Original Screenplay, and it won for the latter. And that's also where it won in our organization for Best Original Screenplay. So we were foreshadowing the Oscars, because our awards take place in January of every year. And so, yeah, I felt really privileged to be able to present him with that award, much as I don't like being on stage. He was a great guy, though. It's just very down to earth and friendly and fun. And he really appreciated what I had to say about his chops as a horror writer, new to the game, but certainly not a stranger to the genre. He was already a big fan, as you could tell. I kind of felt like shades of the Stepford Wives and the kind of that 1970s auteur paranoia feel to Get Out. So that's what I had liked about it. And I think it kind of transcended traditional horror by blending social commentary, but with some genuine scares. And it was everyone pulling together behind the camera and in front of the camera. And you can really feel like it was a well-oiled machine that came together very well. And I think the movie still holds up.
It's so funny. I was actually going to hone in on that specifically. I mean, you've been on, either side of the camera. You've obviously written films, have written so many things in so many different places, especially in the horror space. And it's funny to me, not funny, but it's pretty wild that both you as a movie critic and like the Academy all recognize the screenplay as being something special. Like that's something like that's got to be damn good. And it's always weird because when I miss something, then I have to get in your head and understand why I missed it, Like it's so crazy because when I saw Get Out, Joe, I think we may have seen it together, and I was thinking, all right, like Little Body Snatchers feel. It was a good first effort type deal. Like that was my takeaway from it, and then
yeah,
and no, it's just amazing.
Well, for me, I feel like if the screenplay, if I feel like it would make a great novel, then it's the storytelling that would hold my attention in any format. And I feel like Get Out would have been a great book, just like The Stepford Wives was by Ira Levin before it became a film. So that's my criteria.
Yeah, no, I agree with that completely. It's one of those movies where it's like the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, it was fine. Like, that's pretty cool. And again, I get more out of things. Like I get like more detail on the second go around. Like I wasn't really like, I didn't really care or consider about like, well, why is it black people? It's like, it's just because they're fashionable at the time. It could be anybody and it could change at any time. But right now that's what's in for this procedure. I'm like, all right, that's pretty freaking clever.
That's what I was saying. It's so smart. It's just like that. Because if you do it wrong, if you do social commentary wrong, it doesn't work. Like I'm thinking of The Purge. It's just like, okay, I get it. If this were to happen, you're telling me that the poor people would be left out and be the ones killing each other, and the rich people would not. Like you don't have to beat me over the head with it. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But Joe,
those are pretty heavy-handed. Yeah, those are heavy-handed, and sometimes the comedy doesn't work. Whereas I feel the subtle, dark humor in Get Out really does resonate because it's not overt. It's not in your face.
Yeah, very subtle, and I think even like the family. So that's like Allison Williams, Bradley. Was it Whitaker? Is that his last name? Bradley. I'm drawing a blank. You know what I'm talking about. He's in Handmaid's Tale. He's in Billy Madison.
Okay.
He's the dad.
Oh yeah, I actually don't like that guy, but I know who you're talking about.
Why don't you like him?
I'm just like, did you guys see Godzilla King of the Monsters, the second one, like the follow up to Gareth Edwards' 2014?
I did.
Mm-hmm. Was it Bradley Whitford? Is that his name?
Whitford, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that freaking guy. So all he does is make these zingers. He's like, yeah, like we're gonna need a bigger boat, like that kind of crap, all throughout the whole movie.
I didn't write it.
I know, but
playing a part.
But he's like the same type character in Get Out. It's like, hey man, I would have voted Obama for a third time. It's like, all right,
but he does it so good. Like he's being cringy for the sake of being cringy, and it annoys you. So he must have done something right.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Whatever.
I told you, Ed. Like my thing with that is it's the Joaquin Phoenix theory for me, and I saw Gladiator when it was in theaters and came out literally hating Joaquin Phoenix and not wanting to see anything that he's in until it clicked. It's like, oh, he's just that good of an actor that I felt like I hated him. It's put together so well that I hate the person.
Okay.
It's like, and yeah.
And
that's what I'm saying. He did
The Joker, which was kind of horror adjacent. I mean, at least a genre movie. It was pretty dark.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, there's a lot that get like this adjacent tag to it. Like someone's trying to say The Whale. Like I was looking into it, it's like, well, The Whale's horror adjacent. I'm like, no, I don't think so.
No.
Or Black Swan. Like I think just digging at thinking everything Darren Aronofsky does is so depressing that it's horrific.
Yeah, true. I don't know if you've seen this other Joaquin Phoenix movie where I think he was good enough to be nominated, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't. And it's also, I believe, yes, directed by a woman, Lynn Ramsey. You Were Never Really Here. It's
I've not seen
gory, very dark.
Wow.
He's trying to rescue a kidnapped girl, and he uses a hammer as a weapon to beat his way through the bad guys. But it's really violent and quite gory and really affecting. But not a lot of people talked about it. In fact, a lot of people didn't like it. But I think it was, his performance was just as good, if not better, than in The Joker, which he won for.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down because I would like to watch that.
Yeah, Joe, you love the depressing stuff, man.
I do too.
Dude, I can't. Well, it keeps me engaged. Like I can't look away.
I can't do it at this. Like you were talking about The Leftovers. I probably can't watch that, man. I've read too much about it now. It's like no, I can't. I can't. Dude, it's just too much. What were we talking about with Steve Morrison? It's like there's Friday Night Horror, which is like Jason Lives, USA Up All Night type stuff. And then there's just stuff that you just want to, I don't know, you just need a bath afterwards.
What did you think of Promising Young Woman, which was another one that won Best Original Screenplay that had a lot of darkness to it, but social commentary as well?
Luckily, I didn't see it. Joe, did you see that? Promising Young Woman?
You knew to avoid that. Yeah, it's also quite dark, but brilliantly handled in the writing, which I think it deserved to win Best Screenplay.
Adding it to my list.
All right, what was the one? Single white female. What was the last one?
Promising Young Woman.
It's already on my list. It's already on my list. I remember wanting to see it because what's his face? Bo Burnham's in it.
Yeah, like, he's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What are you, Joe? What are you on that Flickr stick, or what's the thing where you keep track of your movies?
Just Watch.
No.
Or there's the other one, the box.
Letterboxd. That's it. Yes. Yeah,
Letterboxd.
Should we be doing that for Red River Horror, or is that just something else?
Yeah, no, we should be doing that.
Okay. All right, so we'll get on it.
We should be.
Add more to the to-do list.
Perfect.
Yep. There's always something.
So speaking of things I missed, which is a lot, I had no idea. Joe, remember I did that that survey among pretty much just friends, like on Facebook, through Twitter, and I was just pretty much doing a horror of the decades. So I started, I think it was 80s, 90s, and 2000s, right?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Dude, I had no idea, and that's and Staci, you said you had made some notes about like the Academy and horror and things related to it. So when I was covering the early 90s, I didn't realize how many horror bangers there were as far as the Academy Awards go. That's something that I just missed.
Well, there's completely. Your Silence of the Lambs right there.
I guess I knew that was big, but I feel like, would you agree that our horror life kind of started after Scream? Or Scream was the first scary movie that you and I was just whoa, and then we were into horror after that?
Yeah, I mean, that's just because of our age, our generation, when we were, more, allowed.
Right.
It wasn't as easy to sneak movies when we were kids. So
that is,
when we were allowed to watch movies, allowed to watch more adult movies, I guess, is Scream would be right around the wheelhouse.
Right.
Before that we weren't exposed to as much. And then, your dad kind of would open up the case and let us see some more of his horror collection.
Right. That's true. So I with giving kind of Staci that barometer, if Joe and I started at Scream and that was our first big, it's whoa, okay, I love horror movies. And then, as you know me, like Candyman's one of my all-time favorites, but I didn't see it in 1992. So, like when I was like
Right.
writing about these and doing the whole survey thing, I had no idea that everything that I missed in the early 90s. Holy crap, there was a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of great things to watch, which is always fun to have something to look forward to. Well, I'm considerably older than you young pups. So I I actually, the first horror movie I think that I paid my own money to see and went to the theater to see was The Shining in, I think that was
Wow.
1980. So I would have been like 13 years old at the time. And I was living in a small town then, so we didn't need an adult to come with us, and that was pretty scary because I had to walk home in the dark through the forest after that. So it was kind of
No,
that
yes.
feeling of, yeah, I guess it's kind of a thrill, and then you survive it, and there's that kind of like, yes, I made it kind of adrenaline rush after a horror movie.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's part of that really affects you when you're a young kid and you're still developing and you're a teenager. And I think if you like horror when you're younger, you're always going to be seeking that feeling again as you get older too.
Hmm.
Yeah. I love that they had to walk through a farce because it reminds me of like when we were kids. Like it was, Eddie's dad had the collection, so we were watching it in his basement, and then I lived, short walk to my house. But the walk up from Ed's house, if I stayed on the sidewalk, you had to go through these bushes, and the bushes I'm talking about, Ed, on Scotia and Wissahickon.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, I
I
remember.
I just remember the one night I walked out of the house and it was all foggy. I can't remember what we watched, but I like just walked in the middle of the street so that I wasn't going to walk by those bushes at all.
Well,
I
obviously
had
you
that
haven't
feeling of
seen the
getting
car
home.
yet.
Yeah, no,
No.
and it was also probably 3 o'clock in the morning, so
Yeah.
it was quiet.
Well, The Car is a movie about a murderous vehicle. So I think it was made in the 70s and stars James Brolin. So next time you're walking
Well,
down the middle of the street late at night, remember this.
think of that.
Think of
Well,
the
we should
car.
watch that and compare it to Christine.
We should.
Yeah.
I still want to do
Yeah,
the
that'd be a fun double feature, actually.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and I still want to do the book to movie comparison, Joe, because as you know, like California, like John Carpenter, he stole Christine right out of Pennsylvania. That was a
I
Western
mean, you're a
PA
Christine
story.
fan.
I am. I am a
You are,
Christine
you're
fan.
a big fan.
Yeah.
So
So, we
that's
gotta.
yeah.
But anyway, so talking early '90s, didn't know Misery, Kathy Bates won Best Actress, Dracula. Dude, when we finally saw Dracula,
Wishmaster.
well, I'm talking about Oscar-winning horror. But Francis Ford Coppola and Stacey, I think you've interviewed him before.
Yeah.
By the time Joe and I saw Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula for the first time, it almost seemed not like goofy, but more of a caricature of that kind of story. I had no idea it was like Oscar worthy. I know Francis Ford Coppola's name is obviously Oscar worthy. I just didn't know Dracula was that big of a hit.
Yeah, it was. Well, I think the costumes were stunning. I mean, absolutely incredible. I don't recall what kind of awards it won, but it was beautifully shot and the costumes were amazing. The music was incredible. I just watched it again not that long ago. I mean, it's one of my favorites. And yeah, I don't really see it, the parody of it, but I guess if you came to it later, like I saw it when it first came out in theaters and was captivated by it. I also loved Interview with the Vampire, which could be parodied as well. If you think about it, it's rather overwrought gothic, dark
Right.
romance. And, Anne Rice is her, the very sexy vampire thing, which is not cool anymore. But, now they have to be ugly and hideous like Nosferatu. But they still get some though. Remember the end
Yeah.
of Nosferatu?
That's true.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be surprised if like a remake of one of the Anne Rice novel movies is like the next thing to bring sexy vampires back.
Yeah, well, there's
Like,
the series, Interview with the Vampire series, which I've only watched season one, and also the Mayfair Witches is I
Yeah.
guess television is really more where it's at to explore complex storylines. And huge cast of characters because the Anne Rice books really had quite a few characters.
Yeah, I remember trying. Well, I got through it, reading Queen of the Damned before that
Mm-hmm.
movie came out. You know, so there's a bit of a
Yeah,
dig.
there's a lot of mythology and a lot of different characters to remember and different storylines and romances and alliances and fights. And so I think that series television is probably the best place for her type of storytelling. Although she wrote a screenplay for the original Interview with the Vampire movie, but it was rejected. And I had a copy of it for a long time. I can't quite remember how it went, but then Neil Jordan wound up rewriting it and directing the movie. But she came around and really enjoyed the movie. I remember she was saying, "Oh, Tom Cruise would be a terrible Lestat. I don't condone this casting at all." And then after she saw the movie, she really liked it.
I never knew that.
Staci, you just keep dropping these interesting pieces of knowledge towards us, and that's great. Thank you.
No, that's true.
I'm a bit geeky when it comes to my horror.
Yeah.
Well, I guess,
and we love you for it.
Thank you.
I guess we can wrap from here. So I'm thinking, so in the 90s, I did just want to go back real quick, a little bit further than that, to and we forgot to mention Silence of the Lambs, which actually did win Best Picture. I think it's the only horror film considered, yes, Joe, horror, that has won Best Picture, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that is kind of debatable, right? Because a lot of people say that if there's no supernatural aspect, then it's not really horror because he's a serial killer, and it is more of a procedural in a lot of ways. But there are a lot of horror aspects to it that still put it in that genre.
Yeah, it made people feel afraid. So
yeah, right. There's a sense of dread and terror.
So then,
but the horror movie that should have won is The Exorcist, and had plenty of nominations too. So we can't do an Oscar episode without.
Well, even Psycho didn't win, right? Psycho did not win Best Picture. I think it was kind of a bomb at first. Yeah.
That's where I was going to wrap, Joe. No, like with The Exorcist and Staci, if you were, you were born in Los Angeles. I mean, if there's anything that I'm missing past The Exorcist, and Joe, it's interesting you say that. I didn't realize until doing a little prep for this episode that The Exorcist didn't win Best Picture. I never knew that. I always thought it just did because it's that freaking good.
No. Yeah, and it was a huge hit. I mean, it's a legendary film now, but lines were wrapped around the block and the book sold off the charts, and its second printing and third printing and everything after The Exorcist came out. But that was the 70s was such a time of devil movies. You think of The Omen and, a lot of those Race with the Devil. And it was just a time of... it was a dark time in U.S. history, and I feel like people thought, boy, it doesn't get much worse than the devil. So if we can survive a devil movie, we can survive anything. But I was surprised too, that it didn't win anything. Especially Linda Blair was so amazing in that film. And you think of Jodie Foster being the youngest, I believe she was the youngest actor to win an Academy Award for Paper Moon, was it? And that was around the same time, early 70s. Yeah.
Huh.
So you just never know what the methodology is and who's voting and.
Yeah, I mean, the big horror winners for the 70s was Jaws, The Omen, and Alien. All won something. None of them won Best Picture, but Jaws obviously won for original score.
Right.
I mean, that one stood the test of time.
Everyone knows that. Funny, because I was wearing a Jaws t-shirt at the store, a few months ago, and the young clerk stocking the shelves saw the shirt and he started doing the theme song, and I said, "Oh, it's a great movie, isn't it?" He goes, "No, I've never seen it." So everyone knows the song,
but you know it.
They've seen the movie.
Yeah, I didn't know it was a freaking book. Same with Alien. Never knew that Alien and Jaws were books. I think, Joe, when did I learn that? I learned that we talked to the guy who wrote The Meg, Steve Alton. He's just like, "Oh, yeah, the book." I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about? It's a movie." But I always, and Joe, it's funny that I forgot that Jaws was considered horror because, Staci, it's funny, like me and Joe used to be huge fans of those shows that they put together around Halloween time that would come out, and one was the Scariest Movie Moments, and I think it was on Bravo. And you were a contributor to that. I remember that.
I was.
Yes. So that's where I like first remember like you from, and I had never seen Jaws. It's pretty well known on this show. Like I had never seen Jaws. I just saw it for the first time over COVID. I liked it. It's fine. It's great. But when I think that got the top movie moment, and I'm like, get the hell out of here. How is that the top horror movie moment? And Joe, you explained it at the time, and I still was skeptical, but I didn't realize how hard Jaws hits for a lot of people in the horror space.
Yeah, man.
Oh, it does.
It's one of my
massive
favorites.
Fan base. Yeah, it's just a great film, period. And then it's also a great scary film.
And also to add on to Jaws, Kevin Smith has teased that he's going to complete his True North trilogy.
Oh,
and Moose Jaws will finally like going to happen. He said he's
right. That
going to be going
to
for
be
it.
seen, but yeah, we got that to look forward to.
He's Joe, like, the pieces, everything's in place, so he can't let Yoga Hosers be the end of it.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess your final thoughts on Oscar-winning horror. Is there anything I missed, Staci, that may have been in your notes that I didn't ask about or we didn't get to before we head out?
No, we talked about, we mentioned Black Swan, Psycho, The Lighthouse we talked about. Shape of Water, I'd say that's more of a dark fantasy, although it is genre with some horror elements. Promising Young Woman, which also has no supernatural aspect, so some people probably wouldn't consider that a horror film, but it's also quite dark and gory. So, I guess it depends on whether there's social commentary to it, whether it's going to be in the running for Oscars. So I guess we'll see what happens this year. Like I said, The Monkey, I quite enjoyed that. Probably my favorite Oz Perkins movie, because I'm not a huge fan of his other stuff, but this was more accessible, I guess you could say. But there was really no underlying social commentary, so I doubt we'll see that one at the Oscars next year. We just kind of have to see what's coming up.
Yeah, no, Staci, it's funny because I know you weren't a huge fan of Oz Perkins, and it does seem like he is more, he's a lot more just like a straightforward storyteller than I thought. Like I had thought maybe, because of his status, and then like when I saw Long Legs, I thought maybe he would have been like a more pretentious type filmmaker that it's just like, oh, this is above you, Eddie. It's just like, no, he seems to tell pretty straightforward stories.
Yeah, he does. Well, I mean, I'm glad to see him getting some recognition. I had him on one of my talk shows long time ago for his first film when I was hosting Inside Horror with Elric Kane. And so it was really, great to meet some of these people like Ty West, before anybody really knew who he was. We had him on our show. So I'm happy to see these people getting some notice finally, because a lot of times, as we all know, horror is not really considered a serious filmmaking genre, but I think that's changing little by little.
True. And then, Joe, I'll let you have the last word here. I just want to say thank you so much, Staci Layne Wilson, for joining us. Oscar-winning horror. Very excited. You can catch up with her at StaciLayneWilson.com, STACI LaneWilson.com. And then if you want to read what she thought about The Monkey, Nosferatu, Long Legs, any of these horror films, you can go to RedRiverHorror.com. And then, I mean, you're hosting podcasts. You have the whole series going with the Rock and Roll Nightmares. You're just killing it.
Busy.
So thank you so much for taking some time for us on this show.
Oh, always happy to take a break with Red River Horror.
And then congrats. Congrats to Scream alum Mikey. Oh, I'm gonna butcher it already, right? Because I want to say Mikey Monroe, but that's like Micah Monroe. Madison.
Mikey Madison.
There you go. Yeah, congrats to her. Scream alum there, winning the Best Actress. And I'm trying to think. I think that's all I got, Joe. Thank you guys very much for educating me in the Oscar-winning horror space.
Yeah, man, no problem. Yeah, I mean, once again, applause to Sean Baker for putting in all that work. You know, we know how hard it is, especially trying to even just make it short right now. So for him to win 4 awards for editing, directing, screenplay, and Best Picture is absolutely incredible.
That's also, impressive. I have to see Nora now.
Yeah. And then we got to give credit to the Substance for their win for Best Makeup and Hairstyling. And then one quick fun fact for you is that the first horror movie to win for makeup is 1981's An American Werewolf in London. So if you want to watch another, movie that has won an Oscar for makeup, American Werewolf in London. So had to throw that one in there.
I might have to put an article together about this, Joe. Okay. No, this has been very helpful. I am a better man for this episode.
Good.
Aren't we all? So that's something. The monkey is in my weekend plans, or my plans as soon as possible. We got plenty of more great stuff coming this year. Stacy, thank you so much for being here. Eddie, thank you for helping guide me through this one, because my notes were a convoluted mess. So you kept all of us on point. It's been episode number 114 of the Red River Horror Podcast. And remember to keep traveling those channels of fear.